Yeah, today's game is all about music. No, not Guitar Hero or Let's Sing. It's a simulator where you've got to plan, organize and host your own festival. It's called Festival Tycoon and it's out now on PC. The developer of this game is Johannes Gäbler. He is from Austria and Festival Tycoon is his very first game. He designed that while still studying. Why he came up with the idea in the first place and what other stories he has to share now on Open Indie. Hey Johannes, nice to have you on our show today.
Hi. Hello.
You are the developer of Festival Tycoon, a micromanagement sim about music festivals, which is out now for PC. In that game, you create your own festival. You build everything from the ground up. So you have to design the entrance, the stage. You have to decide which food trucks you want to have there. And you even have to place toilets and medical tents and all sort of things. So there's quite a lot to choose from to create your own festival. And while preparing for this episode, I, in my example, set up this techno EDM festival with lots of neon lights and even an Oktoberfest-like tent right in the middle. That's a festival I would like to go to. How about you?
I actually have plans. I have tickets for a festival in 1.5 weeks. So by the time you're listening to this podcast, I might be at a festival. Let's cross our fingers that happens actually. But yeah, I'm actually I am more the rock music kind of guy, to be honest.
Okay.
And I like EDM, I like techno, and I'd love to go to a proper EDM festival at some point in my life. But I've never been to, unfortunately. But
okay.
Yeah, I'm not very restrictive on my music I listen to, except for Schlager. That's a no-go.
Oh yeah, for me too. No Schlager for me. But that's something you listen to in a Oktoberfest tent. But, well, you've got lots of beer, so that's probably one thing why you can listen to it all day long.
That might be the reason.
Yes. How did you create your own festival in the game?
My perfect build-up, basically, you mean?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
So usually I make sure I have lots of janitors because visitors tend to be very dirty. And I mostly build 2 stages, a big one and a smaller one, either a large and medium or medium and small, depends on the size of the map. And one thing I'm always making sure is that there is no mix-up between bands, so that, I don't know, there is no overlay in timing, or at least as little as possible, so that visitors they don't have to choose between 2 stages where to go, because that's usually problematic for the smaller band because no one's listening to them. And I decorate a lot. I love decorating and making everything looking pretty nice and tidy, and I don't know, like everywhere is a small sculpture and some small statues and light chains all over the place. That's basically my play style, yeah.
That sounds nice. I would go there, I think.
That's nice.
So the most important thing in the game is, of course, the music. You have to choose and book bands to play at your festival. I didn't recognize any real bands while playing. Are there real ones too?
Not if you buy the game. There is not a single real band. For a very good reason, and that reason is music licensing, which that the game is developed by me as a solo developer. So music licensing would be probably a 40 hours full-time job for at least one person. And that's the reason why there is no... why every single piece of music in the game is original, made by 3 very talented musicians, for me, not by myself, but made for me. That being said, there's an option to get your own custom music into the game. You can just, like the good old San Andreas GTA Auto Radio, you can just drag your files in a folder and it will load them into the game. So you can play with
cool.
your, I don't know, Metallica or Jean-Michel Jarre. I don't know what kind of music you listen to, but with your dream lineup. And yeah, so I made sure that works. It's not super duper straightforward just to drag it in, because you have to assign some, you have to give it a special name and things like that, so that the game knows what you're actually loading, because the game doesn't know if this is an EDM or a metal track here.
Okay.
But yeah, it's you can take your own custom music. You can even take music of your own band if you have one, and things like that.
Okay. So if I drag in this folder some songs of Metallica, and I give it a name in the game, so then I can, in the game, actually book Metallica to play on stage, right?
Yeah, exactly. Absolutely. You can rename bands in game, and then you can book them. The only thing is that the way the game works in terms of how time in the game works is that you have to cut most songs down to specific versions of like 30 seconds or 90 seconds or 60 seconds, because the time that 1 hour in game is 30 seconds in real life. So you have to make sure that the time aligns with the in-game time, because otherwise your song will just be cut at some weird spots. But that's super advanced. If you're an audio engineer, then that's probably very easy for you. Otherwise, there's an in-game tool where you can just use a slider and define your range of music, basically where it's played.
Sounds nice. Cool. You already said that most important thing, or one of the important things to create your own festival, is to have lots of janitors to clean up. So that's something I can manage in the game. What else do I manage? Like, what do I need to keep an eye on?
So there's two parts of the game, and there's the build part where you build everything up, and this part you kind of should manage things like crowd control, for example, like where do you place fences and which areas are accessible by irregular visitors, or do you want very specific spots where you want to have a gate so that, I don't know, workers can go through it very quickly and go from A to B very quickly, while visitors have to use the longer but the wider path and things like that. And in live mode, this is where the actual festival takes place. There are so-called life tasks. This is how I call them internally. In reality, those are medical issues, for example, or security issues. I don't know, for example, if you forget to place an ATM, people and the visitors arriving to your festival will eventually run out of money at some point, most likely. If you make everything super cheap, probably not, but in any other case, they will run out of money, which means they are going to steal money from other visitors. Which generates, that's actually a thing to the game, and it creates a lot of security issues, because on the one hand, obviously no one likes to have their money stolen, and if your security guards catch them, everything's good. Otherwise, you have a problem, and things like that. And yeah, there's a lot of detail in the game, like, I don't know, sports buildings have a higher percentage of your visitors being injured, for example, which leads to some funny things like ping pong being super dangerous in this game. While I don't know, if you place down one of those those table tennis areas, there's a very high percentage that one of your visitors gets injured, which is ridiculous because they're playing ping pong. But yeah, things like that. And buildings can break down, and buildings can run out of stock. And for all of those different types of tasks, of different types of problems, you can either solve them by yourself. Most of them are just being solved by clicking on an agent or in a building and paying some money. Or you can hire workers to do that for you. Like, there's a specific type of worker for each individual task, and they will deal with those things for you.
Sounds like a lot to do. Because I thought, okay, live mode, and I just enjoy the music, but I also had to welcome the band and or the bands coming afterwards, and manage all sort of things. That's a lot to do and a lot to manage, but it's fun.
Thanks. Yeah, in the beginning, so when starting developing and I ran quite a lot of play tests to get feedback, and it still is one of the biggest problems actually I have with the game. That some people like this playing in live mode, this management aspect, quite a lot. Some people even say it's too little to do during live mode. It's just like a video. And some people absolutely hate it. Some people would love to have some sort of, all right, sit back and relax and watch my festival go down while everything is handled for me because I took care already. And finding a balance for all different types of players in this case turned out to be very, very, very difficult, and is still one of the biggest, I won't say problems because that's just how the game is, but one of the biggest issues that the game still has. But yeah, I tried to do my best to balance that out.
Okay. Is that something you're still working on then?
Yes, kinda. I'm at the moment not actively working on any new features, but that's actually not true if I think of it. I won't say any more, but that's not entirely true. But yes, this is still something I'm working on because it's very easy to balance out for me. But yeah, I can't really do too much about it because the moment I balance it so there is less to do, for example, the part of players who want more to do will scream very loud, and the other way around. If I start increasing the workload during live mode, then people who don't want to play or want to this video style of playing, like not doing too much, they will scream very loud. So I'm kind of trapped in between here.
Yeah, I understand. Maybe, I don't know, I saw that in other simulation games. I think there's like this auto mode you can turn on if you want to. I don't know if that's an option for you.
Yeah, somewhere back in my head there is this sort of sit back and relax mode where all the workers don't need any assignment or anything and just work. That's probably one thing I will do at some point, yes.
Yeah, but on the other hand, it's a simulation game, so yes, there is always stuff to do. Like
absolutely.
Also SimCity or something, you hardly can relax and just enjoy the view of the city you've built. There's always something to manage.
One thing which makes this game incredibly unique, I think, is that usually in those simulation tycoon games, you have immediate feedback on your actions. You place down, I don't know, a janitor booth, and janitors start cleaning up the festival. But in my case, you have to know and learn from your experience from previous festivals, basically what to do next and how to place down and how many janitors you need, for example. You can't just try this out during live mode. And that's an approach I took very, very early on because I kind of wanted to try out what would happen if I do that, because I felt like it doesn't make sense to have festivals being planned during they are active, because that's in festivals, this is just not how it works. At the city, it's kind of, city is alive and you expand it, but a festival is planned, I don't know, 1 or 2 years in advance, and then it happens. And sure, in real life you could tweak and adjust a little bit more than in my game, for example, but actually not that much. And I just said, all right, I'll try something new. And I don't know, some people like it very much, some people don't like it at all. That's how it is.
Exactly, that's always how it is. You can't please everyone. But I think it's all right. I mean, even if festivals are planned 1 or 2 years before, while the festival is going on, you still gotta manage also in real life. There are also always janitors and security guards.
That's also why I added my workers and things. So you have something to do. It's just the focus shifts from what you're doing. That's basically the idea behind it.
Yeah, so I think that's all right.
Thanks.
There's also a loading screen in the game, which told me 1,377 cups of coffee were needed to make this game. Do you still keep count?
No, the amount of time it took to calculate that is actually kind of embarrassing, but it's pretty accurate. And
yes.
I kind of made sure to check how many coffees I drink per day, which at some point during development increased to 1 in the morning and 1 in the afternoon, because when I started out it was just 1 in the morning, and now I'm sitting here and thinking of how I could possibly survive with only 1 coffee a day. But yeah, so it was kind of accurate how I calculated that, and I think it's down to 2 or 3 cups probably. I don't know.
Okay, but that's all right. I thought it's like 10 cups per day or something.
No, but it's not espresso. It's like, you know, those machines which you can turn. Those I don't know how they call it. They're like these Italian machines, and I have one of those big ones, and it's like a big mug of coffee, which is awesome. My fuel, basically.
Oh, that's nice. Yeah, you gotta keep the spirits up, so that's okay.
Yeah, absolutely. Actually, in-game, if you place down one of those breakfast booths, drink something, I don't know, one of those drink booths, they serve coffee too, and when a visitor of you drinks a coffee, then they get energized again, and their tiredness goes down.
Ah, that's a great tip. Okay, gotta keep that in mind. The early access phase for Festival Tycoon started in September a year ago, 2021, and the full version is out now since May this year. Why did you choose early access for the game?
I chose early access not that early on, actually. And during early access, I sometimes ask myself why I did it. But, yeah, to be fair. But the reason behind why I chose early access was more or less because I kind of wanted to get the game out in some sort of way. I knew it wasn't finished yet, and I felt like it would be good feedback. Those are like the I don't know. There's like the public things, the reasoning to get outside visibility and things like that. But there's another reason, and it's simply you have the chance of releasing your game twice, basically. And I was very, very lucky to have a very good early access phase. The reviews during early access were very good, actually, and the initial early access launch was pretty good as well. So it kind of set, I had 6 months of actually quite a good game already out, and this was good advertising and good marketing, actually. And that's what I hoped to get out of the early access phase, basically, and I was lucky to get it.
Yeah, success. Cool. Also in early access, you made or released 8 big updates. At least it says that on your press release. Can you briefly summarize what's in them?
I think it was 8. I have no idea, actually. It was a lot. There was one pretty soon. I don't know exactly what the first one was. But the second one, I think, was the workshop update where the Steam workshop got added, which was huge. Basically, the updates were kind of always a combination of new features and new content. Like there was usually this one big feature and one piece of content and a little bit of extra stuff and I don't know, bug fixes and things things you add because they came along during development. Also a lot of player feedback was in those updates. There was the workshop update, which was maybe the biggest one, actually, or one of the biggest ones, because it added all this workshop. A location editor, I think, was added with this update, where you could make your own locations, where you could build everything and then upload to the workshop. Also, this custom music loading was added there. All things like that. Later on, I added that then there was an update in December, I think. December and November, those were a little bit smaller. I think they maybe added, I'm not entirely sure anymore. I think there was a new worker type and a new worker building and things like that, and a couple of smaller things. But then there was in January, I think, the big sports update with all those were 7 new buildings with sports themed buildings, where we made sure to add something sporty and very, very in the direction of adding a lot of sponsor logos and things like that, because I figured sports is always this very advertised thing, or a lot of times it's very advertised. So all those sports buildings have big billboards on them and things like that, and they're activity buildings, because there wasn't too much to do during the festival day while there was no band actually. So I thought this would be a good addition.
Yeah,
and
sounds good.
for the I think this was the March update, maybe. I reworked basically, I don't know, 50% of how building in the game works, and added those props. I call them props. Internet decorations is maybe what you would call them as a player. Or those decoration items, and we added 7 new themes to the game, where you can build, or 6, I don't know exactly, where you have this landmarks of every theme, like, I don't know, an EDM angel with neon, those neon arms, and a TV as a head, and things like that, like very stylized and pretty nice looking assets, things like that.
I haven't seen that in my gameplay.
Did you? Did you build it?
I haven't. No, I haven't seen it. Oh, I gotta check it out. Definitely, that sounds great.
Yeah, you should. They also line up with the stage styles we added in the last update, because for the 1.0 release, we had this new update with the stage styles, where you could stylize your stage, and where you could change the look of your stage. And we also added the large stage finally. We always planned to do this as the final update, like now it's done, we add the large stage. Internally we called the update the main stage update for that reason.
I wanted to build that large stage, but then I realized, I don't have any space for other stuff.
Yeah, it's pretty huge. Yes. It's pretty huge. You need one of the biggest maps actually to make it work, because otherwise there's just not enough space anymore for anything else.
No, that's only stage and that's it. If you have a small map like me. Yeah, you already said that you still think about or work on the game, and not sure if there's like more content coming, right?
There's one pretty big feature I still have. It's not done. I'm working on it, but it will be done eventually, which I'd like to release. I won't say what it is, but it's nice.
Okay, you can't say anything more.
Then there are a couple of smaller things where I just, a lot of community feedback, which isn't just a couple of lines to change, but which would be a lot of work actually to do, but not that much work that it's not feasible on a, I don't know, rainy Sunday afternoon, for example. I don't know. Things like that. So yeah, that's something, and the game is definitely not dead to me. If there are bugs, for example, I update them quite a lot, and there's I think yesterday or last Thursday, I don't know exactly, I put out another patch with bug fixes and a couple of new feature additions and minor changes, like, I don't know, making some lists sortable, things like that. That's just very quickly to do for me, and I like doing that and improving it.
Okay, that's great.
But then there's one more thing which I hope will be something pretty awesome. There's like a corporation I'd like to work with, not a corporation actually, an NGO I'd like to work with, and they are pretty awesome, and I can imagine that this will be something pretty nice. I won't say anything else here either, but yeah, stay tuned.
Okay, so you can't tell anything yet. Okay.
I mean, I could, but I don't want to spoil anything.
Okay. Then keep us updated, please.
I will.
Can the game actually also be modded?
Yeah, to some extent it can be. It depends a little bit on how you define modding. You can load your own locations. Yeah, I mean, this works in the Steam Workshop. If you have the Steam version on Epic, you can just copy paste your, I don't know, you can send locations via Discord, still works. You can load your custom music, things like that. You can load custom sponsor logos or billboards, basically. So I don't know, if you want a festival where your podcast logos are all over the place, you can just create the files and load them into the game, and it assigns them to a sponsor, and you can just use this sponsor.
Oh, that's nice. I'll do that.
Yeah, absolutely. And not band logos, excuse me, company logos. That's the name I was looking for. Like, I don't know, if you start a festival, you get to choose your logo, and this can be modified too. But yeah, unfortunately, I didn't get to a point where I added like loading geometry or custom buildings or anything like that. That being said, at some point, this is something like a rainy Sunday afternoon task. I might eventually do something like loading custom decorations, for example, because they don't have any gameplay functionality, so they don't need any code. They just need geometry. So that could potentially work. But I don't want to promise anything.
Okay. So if summer is pretty rainy, then there's lots of new stuff for the game.
Absolutely. But let's not hope for a rainy summer just because you want more gameplay features.
Yeah, you can't really decide here. You already said that Festival Tycoon is not really like other tycoons. It is kinda, but also something different. If people now haven't heard or seen anything of Festival Tycoon, with what other games can it be compared with?
Good question, because obviously the build part is comparable with a lot of games. I personally took a lot of inspiration from Parkitect, and also from a lot of the menus actually are inspired by the Transport Fever series. And City Skylines is also a quite big inspiration, because those are games I used to play a lot and still play from time to time. But the live part is kind of hard for me, because obviously, I mean, sending workers around is kind of inspired by the Anno series, actually. Like I don't know, because I played in my very early days, I played a lot of Anno 1503, I think it was, and 1701, I guess. I think, yeah.
I can't remember the numbers either, so.
Yeah, I think it's 1701. This is where a lot of the inspiration for how to send workers around and those things come from. Yeah, but other than that, it's very hard for me, because I couldn't find any real comparison for this split in gameplay. This insanely hard split in gameplay features, actually, because you get from one game to another, kinda, not entirely, but kinda, when you hit this one button.
Yeah, I think so too. It's kind of unique. So there's also, I can't think of any game where I say, okay, that's exactly like it. So
yeah, I mean, I have to admit, I don't know that many games, actually, because very often I talk to colleagues or to friends who are also in the game dev scene, and everyone knows insane amounts of games, and I'm always like, I have heard of that, but I've never played it. I don't know. So I don't know. I'm a little bit of a noob here.
Yeah, it's got a lot of catch up, but there are so many games out there, so it's really hard to keep up now, especially if like big games are coming up, like Elden Ring or something like that, and then oh gosh,
Yeah, that's true.
where do I have the time? Festival Tycoon is out on PC only so far. Are any other platforms planned?
No. Long story short, no. Yeah, I mean, sometimes I get the question from mobile and things like that. That's completely out of the window because it's just not feasible. They're very technical now, but the game, for example, uses Unity and the high definition render pipeline, which, at least to my knowledge, doesn't even run on mobile. So there is no way of doing that. I would have to rewrite the entire thing, and this is not even talking about the UI yet. So yeah.
Ah, okay.
But I lately saw a tweet that the game runs on Steam Deck, which is pretty awesome, to be honest. I would not have expected that, but that's really nice, yeah.
If people want to play on the couch or something, yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah.
So yeah,
that's pretty awesome.
Then you don't need mobile, actually.
Yeah.
Why did you actually decide to develop a simulation game?
Because I kind of play mostly simulation games.
Okay.
And as I mentioned before when we had our little intro chat, I make games since my elementary school days. I think I made my first game with 10 years old using Game Maker 7 or some number. I think it was 7. And from this day on, basically every single game I ever made was some sort of simulation or, yeah, actually kind of simulation tycoonish game. Not all were 3D or in this 3D space where you can build things and stuff like that. But for example, I have never in my life have I ever built a platformer. So I don't know. Those are, yeah, just I mean, I don't know how to do it basically. So I never tried it. And when I started making this game, there were a couple of other ideas I had in mind and things I could think of what I could make. But this looked to me like the most unique idea, and this is why I started it. And it is, I think, the most unique idea, because other things on my list at this point were, I don't know, band management simulators where you build like a recording studio and you can build studio space and get equipment and get bands contracts and things like that. And for example, this genre mechanic that you have to align the genres of the bands on your stages. This is something I had in mind for this record company simulation game kind of. But yeah, everything I ever made in my entire life in terms of game development is, I think, except for one single game, it's all in this simulation tycoon space. So that's just what feels naturally to me to do. So
okay,
I went for it.
And why the focus on music festivals? Did you miss them during the pandemic? Or what is the reason?
When I started out, there was no pandemic actually. Pandemic hit when I started making the game properly, I would say. And to be entirely fair, the pandemic was, in terms of visibility and marketing, probably not the worst thing which could have happened to the game development process. Because I suddenly had a lot of time locked down in my flat to work on the game. And also I made a festival game when every single festival on the entire planet was cancelled. So this was not the worst thing to happen in terms of marketing for the project. But yeah, I made a music fest because I like music a lot. I'm a musician myself. I play the drums. Ah,
okay. You've got a band yourself then?
So yeah, I do.
Okay.
Band is called Lighter on the Moon. Yeah.
Cool.
I like music a lot. And I'm a very musical person actually. So I knew I want to make something in this direction of something with music, and I like event management. This is management in general, obviously, because I make a lot of management games and play them. But another thing which is, and that's true for more than just this game. That's true for that's kind of the reason why I'm in game development. Actually, is that you can work on a certain topic, like in my case, event management festivals, for an extended period of time. You make a game, you get as deep as you like into this topic. You I don't know, learn about it. You experience what it means to do a festival, for example. But you have the option to get out of it again if you don't. If you feel like, all right, I have enough now. And to be honest, I kind of have enough of managing festivals at the moment.
Okay.
I like, I'm very looking forward to go there, but I wouldn't want to manage one at the moment because I just did it like for 2 years or something like that.
Sure.
Not managing it, but I'm dealing with the topic. And that's something pretty nice about game development, I think, because the next project is a completely different topic, for example. It can be a different topic where you work 2 years on this topic and then you have the option to, I don't know, improve on it or just choose something else to do. And that's pretty awesome, I think, because I like exploring new things. So, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, understandable, of course. For indies in general, it's always important to have support while working on the project and also, of course, during release. Where do you currently get support from? Like, do you have a publisher or something?
Yeah, I do have a co-publisher. They're called Future Friends Games. They're in the UK. Mm-hmm. They are very talented and they're very kind and helpful. They do all the press work and all the key distribution stuff and things like that. They're not a full-fledged publisher, like paying me money and things like that, but they handle all the annoying press work for me and writing all the texts and things like that, which just are time drainers, and I'm not too good at it, but they are very good at it, so we make a great team. I got funding by the Wirtschaftsagentur, the Vienna business agency. Mm-hmm. They granted me funding for the project, which is very awesome to get too.
Cool.
And then very, very, very big support is coming from the Austrian game development community, basically. There are a lot of very kind and friendly people and helpful people who, especially in the beginning, helped me out quite a lot with, I don't know, different things, like especially the business oriented things, and the how do you actually get a game out questions and things like that. Not so much on the game design. That's more driven by community feedback and things and things like that. Yeah. So yeah, I would say those are the major helping forces behind the game. Yeah. And obviously my entire dev team. I have 3 awesome musicians and 3 awesome artists helping me making the entire game. So
all right.
Yeah.
And they're all freelancers probably and helping you on the game.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, they have very specific tasks basically. So all the 3D art, for example, is made by 1 or 2 persons, and all the 2D art or the icons, basically I make the UI, but the icons are mostly made by another artist. And the music is also, because those art and music things are on the one hand something I'm just not very good at, especially the art. Music is something I could probably handle myself, but the art I couldn't. I'm just not very good at art.
Okay.
And it's an insane amount of time.
So we don't hear you play the drums?
No, you don't.
Okay.
It's, I don't know, I don't think the way that the music in the game is produced, as far as I know, is that they usually play the guitars themselves. I mean, at least for those songs who have guitars, haha. They play the guitars themselves, and all the other parts of the song are sampled, I think.
Okay.
I think that's how they produced it. But yeah, I mean, it's just not feasible in this size of production to have an actual band in a studio. I mean, I know it for myself what it means to sit in the studio and record a song, and this would be, on the one hand, a very, very, very time-consuming process.
Mm-hmm.
On the other hand, it would be insanely expensive.
Okay.
Even if I'm just playing it myself. So that's the reason why it's all made from home. But I think the music is actually pretty good.
Yeah.
I'm pretty impressed by the quality of music they produced.
Yeah, me too.
That's pretty awesome.
Me too. I like the techno EDM. That was great. I was really bouncing my head
Thanks.
to that.
Nice.
That was awesome. So you're located in Austria. So would you say there is enough funding for indies there? Enough help there?
I think there is a lot. But on the other hand, I gotta be honest, I made this project and I accidentally made a pretty kicky kickstart into this entire industry.
Mm-hmm.
So I feel like I'm not experienced enough to give an appropriate answer.
Mm-hmm.
If there is enough, if it's good, especially compared internationally, I have no idea actually.
Okay.
The support I got was pretty awesome and pretty good. But again, I made a project which was a hobby project in the beginning and became a professional project like 2.5 years ago, something like that. So, and for me it was awesome. For me it was sufficient and pretty awesome, and I applied everywhere and I got accepted nearly everywhere, which was nice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you want to create a game which, I don't know, takes like 10 developers to create and is a little bit bigger in size, I have no idea.
Okay.
I think there are a lot of good options, and I feel like that there is a very caring community and there are a lot of people who are interested in helping you, but I have no idea if it would be easier to get the same thing done in Germany or Italy. I have no idea.
Okay. It's cool that the support was awesome for you and that you've got the help you need. It's also good info. That's good to know if somebody wants to start out as an indie dev. Austria seems cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And especially if you're just a small team or like, I don't know, like me, a young aspiring developer who just has an idea and wants to try something, I mean, then there is plenty of options, and I don't think there's any excuse not to do it, because if you don't need 2 million in development budget, then yeah, there's more than enough options to get something done, especially in Vienna. I know from friends that it's a little bit harder if you're not in Vienna, because options are often, or there are a couple of things which are restricted to Vienna.
Oh, okay.
But if you're in Vienna, it's pretty awesome actually. There's a lot of funding, especially for those small things like I did here.
Okay.
Which turned out a little bit bigger than it was anticipated, but still small.
Okay. What would you say, like, looking at the whole of Austria, what's the gaming industry like? Or is it really only concentrated on Vienna then?
No, it's not. I think the biggest studio in Austria is located in Graz, called Bongfish. But yeah, Vienna is a big hotspot, obviously. There is a lot of, or I think I would guess, I don't know exactly, but I'd guess that approximately half of the development power in Austria is located in Vienna.
Okay.
But then there are hotspots in Graz. It's a pretty big one. And also in Innsbruck.
Mm-hmm.
Innsbruck is a pretty big one too. And Salzburg is also... There are a couple of games coming from Salzburg, and Salzburg is there's more and more stuff happening there, I feel like.
Mm-hmm.
And I think it's developing into one of the bigger spots in Austria too. So maybe it's not even true that half of stuff is in Vienna. Maybe it's just a third or something like that. I don't know. But yeah. Yeah, it's kind of distributed, actually.
Okay, yeah, but that's interesting to know. Yeah, that even also Salzburg, that there is stuff coming. So that sounds great.
Yeah, absolutely. There's Level Up, for example, which is a convention.
Mm-hmm.
I was there last year, and maybe I'm there this year too. But yeah, things like that. It's nice.
Okay. Sounds great. You said before that you already started developing games when you were 10 years old or something. So you taught yourself how to develop games, or how did you do it?
Yeah, I think it was 10 years old. It was last class of elementary school. I think you're 10 years old at this point.
Okay.
I don't know exactly. I started out with Game Maker, which basically is a drag and drop application, if you don't know, but you can code in there. It's a own language which is very forgiving and it's object oriented but very forgiving. So you can try a lot of things out. And the way I got into coding things was that I used this drag and drop functionality for a lot of the logic part. But for example, when I wanted to have a very specific text somewhere, I kind of had to code it because there was no drag and drop piece for this text I wanted there. And that's how I kind of learned the idea behind how code works.
Okay.
And for me, this worked very, very well. And I started making different games, and eventually I removed all drag and drop stuff and just coded. And so I got into this coding thing. And in 2017, I guess, yeah, I think so, 5 years ago, I went to Vienna to study. And I started studying computer science. It's called Media Informatics and Visual Computing here at TU Vienna. And then I had quite a good understanding of how to write code, but the university gave me the shift from, okay, I know how to write code to writing code professionally. And it's a little bit technical what I'm talking here, but basically, I don't know, structuring different things and good and bad examples of how to write something, and just a very solid understanding of how things work. And that was very important, I think, for my game development journey. And yeah, at some point I started playing around with Unity a little bit because I felt like, all right, Game Maker is awesome, but it's time for the bigger things. And yeah, that's more or less how I got into it. And what's still very important, I think, for me, and I still feel like this is one of the major things and one of the lucky punches I basically made in my game dev life, that I learned to understand this logic behind coding very early on.
Okay.
Yeah.
Cool. Are you still studying?
Technically I am. Practically I'm not.
Okay.
I pay them a couple of €100 a semester so that they don't kick me out and don't erase my progress.
Okay.
But I'm very looking forward to get back into it and to start writing exams, because I just have a couple of exams open, which I need to finish at some point. Yeah, I will potentially do that.
Okay. And when you finish all your exams and are done with university, do you still wanna be a developer afterwards?
Yeah, I think so.
Cool.
Because as I mentioned before, you can do something with topics which are interesting to you, or at least that's my approach to it. I can deal with a topic which I'm interested in for a certain amount of time and a certain amount of depth. And yeah, I don't know, one thing I'm very interested in is the history of the Nabatean Empire, for example. Things like that. This is just something very, very, I don't know, random, which interests me, but I can very much see me making a game about that. Yeah, I don't know. Maybe stay tuned. Not an announcement, but stay tuned.
Where is actually the fascination coming from to develop games? What fascinated you back in elementary school?
That's a good question, because I'm not sure if I have a straight answer to that. It's just, it's very creative, and I'm a very creative person. It's something I can do, I think, quite well, or at least well enough for other people to enjoy the things. I like this very, I don't know, when you're writing code or when you developing something, it's a very logical approach to a topic, which I like quite a lot. And this combination of things, like the very technical aspect, but also the very creative aspect. And I don't know, this is not true for all of game development, but sometimes making a game feels to me like actually the game itself. You know, you have a problem where you need a solution, and in some sort of way that's already a game. That's now very game theoretical. But for me, that's kind of, I don't know, if I take Festival Tycoon, for example, I have the problem that players do not properly understand what I mean when I, don't know, tell them that some needs of bands are missing. And in some sort of way, it's a game itself to find out how you can design or how you can show the UI, or show the player through the UI what's actually meant in my case. And things like that, I don't know, that's has kind of some sort of beauty to it, which I like. I don't know, probably if you're not into game development, that sounds very, very, very weird, but
well,
that's how it is.
I would say you're problem solver. Maybe. Creative problem solver. Kind of. I mean, imagine when I'm playing with my band and we have rehearsal. Yeah.
And we have a new song, for example, where we have a wonderful bridge and an awesome chorus, but we don't know how to connect those two pieces. We just, there has to be some sort of transition from A to B, but we just don't know how. And everything we do doesn't feel natural, feels too, I don't know, too hard cut, too smooth, too boring maybe. And finding this perfect transition from A to B is something which would be in making music, that would be one of the issues you have, or I don't know, finding a fancy groove or something like that. And in game development, it's other things you're finding, but it's kind of this very similar situation, I think.
I think I understand what you mean.
That's nice.
Finding those bits and pieces, that's something you really love to do.
Yeah, absolutely.
So yeah, at the moment you are a solo dev, but you also call yourself Dreihaus, so in English like 3 houses or something. Why do you do that? So you have your own company, or what is Dreihaus?
I obviously do have a company, because otherwise that would be, I think, at least somewhat illegal what I'm doing here.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, because you have to pay taxes, unfortunately, in our society, and paying taxes doesn't work without a company, I think. I don't know. But yeah, I never actually use the name Dreihaus publicly, because I feel like I'm a solo developer. I'm making this game on my own, and there is no need to use a fancy company name. And sometimes you see on Reddit, you see a gameplay trailer for some indie game, and it's 20 logos in the beginning, and I just don't feel like I'm this official huge, no one knows me and my game, actually, maybe the game, but me personally. So there's no need to use this Dreihaus thing. I feel like this is just it's there, I have it. I actually, it's even a registered trademark by me.
Okay.
But yeah, name's origin is the street I'm living in. It's called Dreihausgasse, and I felt like it's a nice name actually for a studio, because you kind of understand it in English too. You can say it in English as well, and it has this industrial vibe to it in some sort of, like Bauhaus kinda. Yeah, and I felt like, yeah, all right, why not? Why think about it for a long time? Why not just use it?
Yeah,
so
why not just do it? Do you ever think about forming a team and having employees and that sort of stuff? Or after university then?
I think I will eventually be self-employed and make some sort of team and something bigger, yes. The thing is that, I don't know, with great team comes great responsibility. If I may quote this movie, it's kind of, that's a difficult question for me, because on the one hand, obviously it's the only way to go. Only is not correct, but if I want to improve on Festival Tycoon, I feel like the next step would be to make something with a team, because doing the same thing again would obviously be improved, and I know with mistakes I made and I would learn from them and so on and so forth. But I feel like if I want to improve my entire development career, not career, but the stuff I do, then I have to make the next step, and the next would have to be founding a team and things like that. That being said, there's a lot of legal stuff around it, which is, I don't know, at least just you have to know it. And I mean, I do know it, but this is very specific again, but in Austria you have to find your limited company, your GmbH, or limited as it would be in English. Or you don't have to, but I wouldn't want to have the risk to have employees with a Einzelunternehmen, with a one-man employment. I don't know how it's called in English.
They would be freelancers or something, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if they would be freelancers, yeah, sure, but this is kind of the same situation I have now.
Yeah.
And it's kind of risky. You can't hire everything, and it's getting very specific legally here. But yeah, that would be a next step. Would be big, and I think I'd like to do something like that next. But obviously the idea has to be kind of solid on the one hand, and I don't know, and I would like to do that with a partner. I wouldn't want to do that on my own, to be honest.
Yeah.
And yeah, but I'm actually working on a different game at the moment, not my own game.
Okay.
Again, not announcing too much here, but there will be, I don't know, 2 years, 3 years. I have no idea actually, but that's usually how long making a game takes. And what comes afterwards, I have no idea.
Okay.
Maybe I'll do a big, I don't know, MMORPG, whatever they call it.
Next World of Warcraft.
Yeah, exactly, because no one ever tried to do that and failed miserably. Yeah. Very funny story.
Yeah.
To find an end. One funny story from one of the first games I ever made was a friend of mine and me. We had an office at this time in Innsbruck. We actually had an office to make our games there, which in hindsight is ridiculous. But he made the art and I made the code and the project management, just so you know the size of the team. And our approach to the game was, and what we wanted to make was, all right, let's copy GTA, but with lower styled graphics, because we can't do AAA graphics, because we were reasonable, Let's copy GTA and make it so that every building is enterable, because we don't like that you can't enter buildings in GTA.
Oh, God.
And on top of that, the story was that you can time travel and you can travel between the worlds. So you can travel to the past and to the present. And in the past, you were a character which influenced the things from present times. And in the present, you had to deal with the influence. So we had to create the entire world twice. It was open world, obviously. We had to create the entire world twice. You had the size of a GTA map to deal with, and every building was enterable, but we had low tier graphics because we couldn't afford AAA graphics. That's that's one of the bigger mistakes I made in my life.
Yeah, but it's ambitious, I would say.
Yeah, absolutely. There is still a prototype where you can walk around. We ultimately failed, like, I don't know, 2 months into development because we couldn't get the car AI to work. Yeah.
Can you download it somewhere and try it out?
No, I still have an access somewhere sitting around, but it's really it's very it's not even a rough prototype because you cannot do anything actually other than walking around and getting not hit by cars. And cars are pixels, so
Can you go in every building? Can you go inside?
there is not
No.
even a building yet. No.
Oh.
And it was all made in Game Maker.
Okay. But
Yeah.
I have to say that's also a thing I really got annoyed in GTA is that you can't enter every building. So I don't know.
Yeah.
I didn't like that either.
We got annoyed too.
Yeah. That's
Yeah.
something I can totally understand.
And then we stopped this project, and then we started a new project, which was a game for mobile phones, for smartphones, where you could, because we were reasonable and we thought, all right, let's do something in smaller scope and let's do something we can actually manage to do. And it was called Risk It.
Mhm.
And this was in our Breaking Bad times, basically, where we watched this Breaking Bad series, and we were very influenced by this. And the game was basically a game where you could produce and sell drugs.
Mhm.
So what you wanted to do is you wanted to buy, I don't know, weed plants and ecstasy labs and stuff like that, and you could hire dealers and things like that, and you could produce, and that's major point, and then you could sell them.
Mhm.
And the idea was to have this entire app infrastructure where you have different apps, like the app for Risk It, where you could produce the drugs, and then you had a different app which was called Wash It, where you could wash the money you made
Okay.
from selling drugs, where you needed to build up infrastructure, I don't know, like laundry and burger joints, whatever, yeah, to wash the money. Eventually, the project actually went on Google Play. The only downside was that approximately 2 months after putting it live, it was taken down by Google because they didn't like the idea of producing and selling drugs.
And that's weird.
So, yeah, another lesson learned.
Yeah, that's one thing I just thought about if Google would like that, but there are
No,
like
they absolutely didn't.
drug empire simulators out there, so I don't know what.
Yeah,
the
there
criteria
are,
is.
but I think that's what I think is that they are okay with weed, but not with any other drugs.
Okay.
And in our game, you could produce 6 different drugs, and those were like, I don't know, cocaine and meth and things. I don't know exactly.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, we were 16 or something like that. So yeah, as you might tell by the idea.
I do understand it. I mean, the Breaking Bad series was just fascinating, and so developing some sort of game like this, of course, I think lots of people tried.
Yeah.
What would you say in your life as a developer? What worked really, really well? Is there something?
Actually, making this game, when this the kickstart for Festival Tycoon was the Subotron live pitch. I won in late 2019, and this is an award in Austria, which is in Austria it's pretty big actually, and you usually, if you're in the industry, you know about it.
Mm-hmm.
And I applied there with the prototype for this game, and I never have ever in my life pitched anything before that, or at least not in terms of games. And there was a workshop for pitching games before that and things like that. And this was the first time in my life I ever pitched anything. And I didn't know anyone. I had never done anything with the game development industry before. And I won this award.
Wow.
And that was pretty much the kickstart for me. And yeah, I'm still kind of blown away by it. I still don't exactly know how I managed to do that, to be honest. But I managed to do it. I don't know. And the reason I won this award, I think, at least that's how, what I remember them saying, is because the idea is unique, and the I don't know, I kind of gave them the impression I'm serious with what I wanted to do, and I was, obviously, because I understood this would be a big chance. And yeah, so I won this award, and that is probably the biggest achievement to this point, because maybe next to releasing the game, actually. But from knowing no one in this entire industry to being the winner of one of the bigger awards in Austria from one day to the other is pretty awesome, to be honest.
Yeah, definitely. Wow. What would you say didn't work at all in your life as a developer so far?
So there are two things, I think. One thing is marketing and game scope. I was very, very close to that point where I would lose the scope of the game, I think. Where I would just, where it would get out of hand, and I was very close to this point of no return where the game was just too big for me to deal with. And at some point, I think this was maybe in, I don't know, around a year ago probably, I made a very, very hard cut in features, basically. That was important, I think. And I learned from this quite well. And combined with that is the aspect that I think now in hindsight, I wouldn't call it a mistake, but it's just something I would do differently in the next project, is the amount of time I spent on marketing compared to the amount of time I spent developing was way too much on the development side. Because if I compare this game to other games out there, I feel like it could have not done better in any way in terms of sales or something like that, but the awareness of the game could be way higher. And obviously this is just time you invest in marketing.
Okay.
I don't know, just a metric to use would probably be Twitter follower, maybe something like that, just to use a metric. That's something I would probably change for the next project. And another thing I learned, which is quite different, but also something where by now I know how those things run, is talking to big corporations and big companies about potential partnerships. Because I talked to some crazy, ridiculously big companies, which, I mean, I talked to major labels and things like that, and not to some, those were big people in huge companies which were interested in my game. And it's pretty nice to talk to those people, because you feel pretty famous out of sudden, and you're like, oh, I'm talking to this fancy dude sitting in New York City somewhere.
Okay.
But what it eventually came down to in pretty much every case is that those companies are looking for a partnership where they get obviously something in return. And in my case, I got funded by the Vienna Business Agency, as I said before, for I think 50,000 euros, which is for me a huge deal. And for me, this is insane. But for a big corporation, that's what they expect in 2 weeks of a revenue get back.
Okay.
And this is obviously something I cannot even close to provide. So they are the second they realized that my project is just not as big as they would like it to have, or they not even like, but require it to have for them to make sense, the moment they were kind of gone, basically.
Okay.
And gone somewhere nice and said, all right, this is not going to work. Some just ghosted me straight out.
Okay.
That's something I learned, and I'm not mad at them or something like that. I mean, some could have been nicer, some were pretty nice to me. But yeah, that's something I learned. So next time, I don't know, I'm making up names, but if some major event provider, for example, contacts me, I by now know that this is nice to meet them, and obviously I meet them because I like meeting people and never say no to something like that. But the probability of it getting somewhere is pretty small.
Okay.
That's just something I know by now.
It's great to talk to them anyway, so you also know what they have to say, what their demands are, or what they would like to have.
Yeah, absolutely, totally.
Can you say to which ones you talk to? Or is that too much info?
I can't say to anyone, and I won't say those who I technically can say quite some names, but I won't because I don't think it's very nice.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Okay.
They were big.
Okay.
Yeah, like toy companies and major labels and things like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's also an experience. So just take it.
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. And I'm glad I did it. And I would never say no if someone asks me because why would you? But yeah.
Yeah, sure. That's also something I wanted to ask you, if you've got any advice for other indie developers wanting to start out like you. So that's probably one thing. If you go to big companies, don't expect something, in return, or
but also don't turn them down.
Okay.
Yeah. But take the invitation. I mean, it's like, I don't know, it's 30 minutes of your time, but the best thing that could happen is a pretty insane deal for you. The worst thing is that you can brag in front of your friends that you talk to, I don't know, Mark Zuckerberg. Maybe don't talk to him, but you know what I mean. Yeah.
Yeah. You've got any other advice for any developers?
Obviously, there's always this advice anyone will ever give you: don't start out with something which is GTA remake, but you can enter every building. That's out of scope for you. And yeah, that's something everyone always says. It's everything is out of scope for you. Kinda any idea you have as a starting developer is basically out of scope. You can pretty much be sure about that. But that's something everyone always says. And I do agree with that because, but on the other hand, I feel like it's kind of important to start. Just start. Don't think too much about it. And if you want to make a GTA remake where you can enter every building with 2 worlds in 2 time zones, I mean, it was a mistake, obviously, but I also learned quite a lot from it. And that's the reason why I'm not super sure if I totally agree with that scope thing, because it doesn't matter what project you start, you will always have a first project, and your 10th project can be the perfect scope and will be it still will be kind of, I don't know, maybe it will finish, but probably not. So just start, just do it. That's probably, and also start with what you know. If what you know is, I don't know, drag and drop in in Game Maker, start with Game Maker. If you already know, I don't know, C#, start with Unity. But I feel like it's not a good idea to waste too much time learning C# first to then go to code in Unity, because what you want is to make a game, and learning C# is not exactly making a game, and you will get demotivated quite fast, I think. So, and even if you have never ever started a PC before, make a board game, I don't care, but
make something.
try to do something. Yeah, make something what you want to make, and don't don't use an excuse to not do something, because if you want to learn C# to start Unity, then you obviously want to make a game, so it's not an excuse to learn C# first, but try to make the game as soon as possible, basically. Because you will learn, I don't know, the code by just doing it, and
yeah,
that's probably my bunch of advices. And never say no to a chance. Always, always, always accept any chance you get. And even if it's, I don't know, even if it's just, yeah, I'll take a music comparison because I'm just making something. If you get the chance to play with your band at a very, very, very tiny pub somewhere where the drum set doesn't even fit on the stage and you have to play with half the drum set, don't say no, because it's a chance. And there can be someone in the audience who likes what you're doing. And this applies to game development exactly the same way, I think.
Did you do that? Play in a little pub?
Yeah, at some point. We played in Innsbruck once. The pub is called Shakespeare. It's after our rehearsals, we always went there. And they have a stage which is in the corner of their pub. And it's so incredibly small that our guitarist and the singer and bassist had to stand down. They couldn't stand on the stage because there wasn't enough space.
Okay.
And we played the sound check and everything was off and it was already too loud.
Okay.
And there wasn't even any microphones on yet. So yeah, but it was a fun evening.
Yeah, I can imagine. You're gonna have fun with everything, so.
Yeah.
To sum up, Festival Tycoon, your current game is out now for PC. Are you happy how it turned out in the end?
Yeah, I am. And yeah, I'm happy with how it turned out and I'm pretty proud of it, to be honest. I mean, yeah, there are things who could have been better and stuff like that, but that's always the case. But yeah, I'm pretty happy.
You've also said kinda that you're on to the next project already or thinking about it. Can you tell us more about it or is it still a secret?
It's a project which is being developed in Vienna. And I'm hired to be one of the coders there. But yeah, it's not a big secret, but it's also not publicly announced yet, so I'll just wait a couple more days, I think, or weeks or whatever.
Okay.
I don't know. Eventually the world will know.
All right. We stay tuned, definitely.
Please do.
Johannes, thank you so much for all these insights and the stories, and it was great having you here on Open Indie.
Thank you very much for having me here. Thanks for the invitation and thanks for the talk. It was very fun talking to you. And it was a great post-mortem somehow sort of thing. I never thought about the past so much like now in the couple of last months. Thank you very much.